This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Tuesday, the 26th of November, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. 2 more police officers have been freed of their bribery charges and had the charges dismissed in court. Less than 1 week after 5 officers were freed of extortion charges due to insufficient evidence, 2 more of their colleagues involved in the same matter have now also been released. A lack of evidence was yesterday cited as the reason for the case being dismissed against officers Kiran Morang and Nicholas Ragoobarsingh. Morang and Ragoobarsingh were charged with misbehavior in public office, along with police officers Keenan Williams, Evans Mitchell, Kevin Gomez, Latifa Lazama, and Jabari McIntyre. They were accused of accepting a $30,000 bribe and forego the prosecution of a businessman. This follows the release of 7 Eastern Division officers on corruption charges on November 18th. With yesterday's case, the total number of officers freed on criminal charges in the past week has risen to 14. Criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran cites structure and process as 2 of the factors which can impact the effectiveness of the new Police Service Commission. He spoke on the Power Breakfast Show yesterday morning during an interview. Professor Deosaran claims, despite numerous complaints by the Prime Minister about the Police Service Commission, nothing has been done either by him nor the opposition leader to make improvements to the PSC. An argument between 2 men in Upper Port-of-Spain on November 25th yesterday led to one being stabbed in plain view of passers-by and drivers and pedestrians. The stabbing occurred around 9:30 a.m. while the victim of a 45-year-old security guard standing at the corner of Oxford and Abercrombie Streets. A man approached him and the 2 began arguing, then fighting. During the fight, the attacker took out a knife, stabbed the victim in the right shoulder and left ankle, then ran off. Eyewitnesses told the police, who took the victim to the Port-of-Spain General Hospital, where he is warded in stable condition. The alleged perpetrator remains at large. The number of lab-confirmed deaths from dengue stands at 19 locally, while there are 2,004 lab-confirmed cases of dengue fever. Information contained in the Ministry of Health latest update on dengue cases in the country. As at November 22nd, 2024, a total of 1,326 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners, occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. Of this, 83 property owners and occupiers have so far been ID'd for the consideration and institution of legal proceedings for non-compliance. In sporting news, 334 runs is the victory target for Bangladesh to get going into the 5th and final day of the first test against the West Indies at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua. The visitors closed play on day 4 on 109 for 7, still leading 225 runs to get, with 3 wickets going to Kemar Roach and Jaden Seals. Earlier, Taskin Ahmed took 6 for 64 to restrict the Windies to 152 in their second innings. Scores in the match: West Indies 450 for 9 declared and 152 all out. Bangladesh 269 for 9 declared. Finally, the special prosecutor who brought 2 key criminal cases against Donald Trump has asked judges to drop both of them after his victory in the 2024 presidential election. Special counsel Jack Smith was overseeing cases accusing Trump of trying to overturn the 2020 election results and improperly storing classified documents after he left office at Mar-a-Lago. Trump has pleaded not guilty in both cases. In new documents filed on Monday, Mr. Smith said the cases should be closed because of a Justice Department policy that bans the prosecution of a sitting president. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming here at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Neighbors, it is the 26th day of November, 29 days to Christmas. How you doing on this Tuesday? Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Thank you so much. Of course, it's all about the R's this morning. We just heard from Dr. Paul Richards with our news brief. We'll hear from Richard Ragoobarsingh. We got Ruben, and then we got the S's. We got Shane in the mix. And of course, my name is Steve Kern. 25 degrees at Piarco, 26 at Crown Point in Tobago, and I do not have an updated weather for you. All right. Just to let you know, if you're coming into Port of Spain and you take that flyover and with the humps, a flyover with humps, and you get into Port of Spain and where that, I don't know if it still is, homeless shelters, there is a car that is crashed into the barriers, and that is creating a little backup this morning. So expect that. Of course, the authorities are on scene. All right. Good morning to you, Pablo.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
What's shaking? What's shaking? It's Tuesday.
I have the flu.
Keep it.
Well, I got what you call it, an allergy attack yesterday. All day I was sneezing.
Oh, really?
That stripped my mucous membranes in my nostrils. I got totally congested last night, and it was a wrap.
Yikes. Okay. So, because that flu that's going on is horrible. Horrible.
It's not that bad. It's just flu.
Oh, gosh.
Congested nose, and
Yeah, I don't want that at all. I take my zinc after dinner, and hopefully then my vitamins in the morning, and hopefully that will help me. Hopefully that will help me. All right. Of course, what's going on in the news? I don't even know what's going on. I've been so
two more officers freed.
Yes, I heard so in your newscast just now.
Where's your camera this morning?
It bumped off again. Yep. Try again. Something went wrong. Try again. Okay.
Yeah. 2 officers freed. Well, the remaining 2 of the cadre where their colleagues were freed last week for insufficient evidence. Well, these 2 latest ones also freed yesterday for the same reason, insufficient evidence. Brings to 14. Number of officers freed for insufficient evidence. Cases collapsing.
Because insufficient evidence.
And this is not to say it never really got to trial, because of course in the ones before that were freed before, the prosecutors did not abide by the magistrate's instructions to supply evidence in a timely manner. So according to the new rules, the magistrate or the master of the court has the right to dismiss the cases. And the law was designed that way so that people don't languish forever waiting for either DPP prosecutors or police prosecutors to bring evidence and have these cases stretching out for years. Either you get your act together or the cases are dismissed. Now, of course, that may, and this is not to do with these cases, that may provide a loophole for some people, because think about it. If you charge and you could get someone, again, this is not to do with these cases, you could get someone for some reason to not provide evidence, eventually your charges will be dismissed. So I think the police commissioner and or whoever else is an authority needs to take these things very seriously and sanction those officers or prosecutors who either don't turn up for trial or don't provide evidence in a timely manner when they have matters brought before the courts.
Exactly. Man, fellas doing anything they want.
Well, we finally heard from the commissioner of police last week, who indicated that 3 officers are being investigated in relation to these cases. But I mean,
that was public outcry.
Really, we wait with bated breath to see what happens regarding that and what these investigations provide. I can barely breathe.
You need to steam. That's what you need to do. You need to steam.
Strip my mucous membranes even more.
Yeah. No, you're not doing it strong. You're just doing it enough to
No, thank you.
Yeah. When I get that, I normally steam. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, doesn't speak well for the criminal. Well, I shouldn't say it doesn't speak well for the criminal justice system. It's working the way it's supposed to work. But unfortunately, when officers and or prosecutors don't turn up and don't have their ducks in a row and they're crap together, it really makes the whole system laughable.
Mm-hmm.
Because on one hand, all these officers, 14 of them now, have
14,
been
huh?
charged with serious offenses. So
14.
their characters are impugned, their reputations are impugned, and then after the prosecution and the police prosecutors fail to abide by the rules and regulations of the courts, the matters get dismissed. I mean, come on. And they need to take these things very, very seriously, and serious
Not.
sanctions for those who ended up, because of their, what's the word, tardiness. These cases basically collapsed. So, and as we said last week when we were talking to either Larry Lala SC or Keith Scotland SC, that it doesn't reflect well on the police service, as we can see, either with the charges being made in the first place or the charges being dismissed because of a lack of evidence that should have been provided by police officers to prosecutors. So
Exactly.
what are you gonna do?
I don't know. I really don't. That's all I get. I can't say anything.
Is dengue still a thing in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes. Yes. I think it's
excuse me.
It's 18 or 19 individuals have passed because of dengue so far for the year.
Well, there have been 2,004 lab confirmed cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still a thing.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was still a thing.
Yeah, I know in the penal area it was really, really bad.
But I guess we're still getting a lot of rain and stagnant water in some instances. So yeah, the mosquitoes will breed and transfer these diseases to human beings who fall susceptible to them. So you gotta be careful out there, make sure around your house is cleaned up and you don't have containers with water.
Yeah, mine is clean.
1,326 yellow fever notices were issued to property owners and managers, and of them 83 have been identified for further action by the authorities. The leader of the opposition, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, is saying don't increase her pay. As a matter of fact, I have a video to play. Let me just download it. She says she doesn't want any pay increase, and neither should the pay of the president, the prime minister, and other parliamentarians be increased. Of course, this stems from the Salary Review Commission recommendations. Guardian called me yesterday or messaged me yesterday to give a comment, and I told them, because they always put their own headlines to Mr., which are not always in alignment with what you said. That's why I'm always.
Paul Richard said, "Show me the money."
He said no such thing.
That's what they'll quote you and say.
He said no such thing. What he did say is that what the Salary Review Commission should be doing, particularly in light of the fact that the last report that was sent for the cabinet's consideration was rejected by Finance Minister Colmember, because of what he described as anomalies. So I would imagine that at the same time that this report would have been sent back to the cabinet's consideration, is that the Salary Review Commission would have provided some benchmarks or guidelines that they used to come up with these increases that would be able to more clearly justify to the public, well, for example, a prime minister in Jamaica is making 40% more than a prime minister in Trinidad and Tobago. Or a president in Barbados is making 35% more. So they have comparatives that they can say they use to justify the increases that they're suggesting. I mean, that also doesn't take care of the fact that some members of the public are saying, well, in some cases, I think it's as much as 35 or 37% increase, while public servants are being told to
band
the belly and take 4% and 5%. So that is almost irreconcilable.
And 2%.
But on the other hand, if the positions are comparable in other Caribbean and or Western Hemisphere jurisdictions, Commonwealth jurisdictions, or Commonwealth jurisdictions. It's a justification on one hand, because would you want your prime minister, your president making less than somebody in the same jurisdiction in a comparable position with similar responsibilities? You understand? So my comment was that if the SRC were to provide the benchmarks or the references that they used to come up with these recommendations, it may be more palatable to some people. Make sense?
Makes sense.
But it's Trinidad and Tobago.
It is Trinidad and Tobago.
I think this is it.
I do not believe the Prime Minister should get an increase at this time. I do not believe the President should get an increase at this time. I do not believe that Kamala Prasad, Mrs. Opposition Leader, should get an increase at this time. No, no. Now is not the time when you're offering people 1% and 2% and 4%. It is obscene.
And the other part of that, that one must consider, that I think that we should have in the conversation related to any salary increase to any public official and public officers and public sector workers, is the issue of performance management and performance assessment. You understand? Because we always hear about negotiating for particular periods. We never hear about if consistent, fair, and transparent performance management assessments were done. You understand? And I know, and it's a valid point that, well, cost of living is increasing. So then public sector workers and private sector workers may need to get salary increases, because, I mean, prices are going up and people have to struggle with the same salaries from 8 years ago when cost of living is increasing. But added to that conversation, I believe, and I'm not hearing it a lot, is the issue of whether or not there have been consistent, transparent, and fair job assessment processes and conversations about productivity. Those, I ain't hearing that as part of the conversation at all.
No, PTSD.
So whether or not you're producing, whether or not you're going to work, whether or not you're, I'm going to say something that wouldn't sound too good, messing around on the job, barely going to work, clocking in and going and drive taxi, etc.
Or do whatever they want to do, but they're clocking in fast.
There's a conversation about salary increase when there's no conversation about performance assessment and or productivity, which is crazy to me. So, I don't know. We'll see. The leader of the opposition is also calling on the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance to state the government's position on the SRC report. Very quickly, with the last report, the Minister of Finance identified what he described as several anomalies and sent it back to the SRC. So, I mean, if he could have come out at that time and speak about the anomalies, the government, to me, needs to give a position on it. But we see the Prime Minister was out of the country, and more than likely we'll have post-cabinet press briefing on Thursday. We haven't had one for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I'm presuming that at that time, reporters will ask the Honorable Prime Minister what the government's position or the cabinet's position is on these SRC recommendations. What will be interesting to note is, given Mrs. Prasad-Bissessa's utterances now that she doesn't believe the President, the Prime Minister, or the leader of the opposition should get an increase, as the SRC report suggests, is if the cabinet approves the report, if Mrs. Prasad-Bissessa will forego the money. And
say, okay, thanks.
The additional money is going to go to a charity or whatever, or constituency office or whatever. You understand? Or if everybody just stays silent and get the money and
stay quiet
and live happily ever after.
Have a Merry Christmas.
And, that'll be interesting. To be fair, if my memory serves me correct, I don't know if it's during her tenure as prime minister or after her prime minister tenure,
You
during her
went
tenure as opposition
way
leader,
back.
that she would have called on her MPs to donate something to their constituency offices or to the poor or to those in need. I can't remember when it was, but I think I remember her
I can't
saying
recall.
that. So maybe she will do a similar thing if the cabinet approves these these increases. The other said the anomaly was that the increases were too low. Well, that's why I ask about what benchmark or metrics or reference they use to come up with these increases.
Yeah.
And they should say
I
so.
don't
Say,
know.
well, we looked at prime minister salaries across the region, and generally, if we did an average, prime ministers make, let's just say for conversation, 15,000 US a month. You understand? On average. And our prime minister is making 8,000 US a month presently. So what? So that's what the increase was. The recommendation for the increase was based on. You understand? But in the absence of the Salary Review Commission telling us what the reference points or benchmarks were that they used, why are we saying it too high or too low? Based on what? So
Can't start at all.
it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Thanks, Jason. The Children's Life Fund. That is what it was.
Oh,
She
yes.
asked for thanks, Jason. She asked for the MPs to donate some portion of their salaries to the
Children's Life Fund.
which
That's
means
right.
it would have been more than likely when she was the prime minister from 2010 to 2015. So maybe if the cabinet approves and she's the beneficiary of an increase, because the office of the leader of the opposition is also recommended to have an increase, as does the president, prime minister, members of parliament, cabinet members with portfolio, all members, senators, etc. That there will be some concession on her part to her MPs to donate in a similar way. We shall see how it unfolds.
That's all we can do. We could just wait.
I also said it's a good time for the state of Trinidad and Tobago to engage in a discussion about timely negotiations. Very often, why unions have to ask for 10 and 12%, it is because the negotiations are always so delayed, years delayed, while cost of living is going up. So they're usually negotiating for 2-3 periods at one time, putting the person that they're negotiating for, to me, at a disadvantage. And if we were negotiating in a timely and settling these negotiations in a timely manner, then one would have found that the quantum they're asking for is maybe justifiable or maybe more palatable to whoever the government or whoever the CPO is at the time. But yes. Shall we open the phones? That's how I talk, and I'm feeling stuffy.
Yeah, we can do that. Open up the lines a bit early. 24 minutes after the hour is 6 o'clock. Good morning to wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's see if the Met Office updated. Oops.
Saved by the Ragoobarsingh.
Saved by the Good morning, Rich. Of course, the Met Office says today is going to be occasionally partly cloudy to cloudy periods with showers will interrupt a fair breezy day. Some of these showers may become heavy and or thundery. Okay.
Should I drink coffee with this flu?
Hello, good morning.
I didn't hear
Good
what
morning.
Morning, caller.
Coffee. Morning. So, Dr. Richard, I listened to your analogy in terms of comparing the salaries to what is the industry standards. So what about the public servants? Because a similar exercise was done within the last 5 years for all public servants. And it would be interesting, maybe you all should investigate that and ask, let's see what was the result of that that assessment. Because I'm sure it may be similar. And then how do we justify public servants not getting the industry standards? Because I think the media needs to look and find out about that reassessment that was done with public servants. Sorry, within the last 5 years. And I know it was done because I was a part of it. Let's see what did that say.
Yes, there was a job evaluation exercise that was tied to
Yes.
that. Wasn't that what it was called?
Yes, a job evaluation to
There's
see in
a
terms
phrase
of
they used.
the revise.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
that's the
absolutely
phrase.
right.
And it would be nice to see. Let's see, because if we're talking about industry standards, public servants, when you compare a clerk in the public service to what someone is getting private, I mean, it's chalk and cheese. So let's be transparent across the board. You can't justify it one way and
But
not do it another way.
But I also, as I added to the conversation, and I agree with
Yeah.
you, that there must
Yes.
also be included in the conversation, one, timely negotiations being
Mhm.
completed, and two, the
I
issue of
totally
productivity and job performance assessment. It can't be just
I totally.
raise pay when some
Mhm.
sectors or people may not be performing,
I totally agree with that also. It must be
including high-ranking public officials. Yeah.
holistic. Yes, of course. It
Yeah.
has to be holistic. So let's bring it. I think the media should investigate that assessment, and let's bring that to the fore and put it on the table also. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
great
Yes.
speakers
You
and
have
good to be
performance
gathered.
appraisals that continue regularly throughout the public service, as far as I'm aware, in terms of people in whatever jobs, including senior management. They answer to somebody, and there's a performance appraisal that's done. So if you're not performing, certainly there are consequences that you don't move up in a range if you're unestablished, even though a lot of the public sector is now contract. So it can lead to the non-renewal of your contract, or
In the public service?
You can, yes. Sometimes contracts are not renewed. So it really depends. It depends. I mean, people who are permanent employees, it's a little bit more difficult because they're permanent. And certainly you may be in a range, and you may not move up in that range or move up in the increment for that range. That's what the whole issue of performance appraisals is tied into. Now, I can't speak, the public sector is vast. So I can't speak to the consistency of that happening everywhere in the kind of way that it's envisioned. But certainly there are performance appraisal markers that are tied into how you move up in a job.
I was saying earlier, Richard, which sparked the conversation, is that one of the things the SRC should do is provide to the public, along with the recommendations, the benchmarks that they used for identifying or making the recommendations. Is it that you looked at regional counterparts, the Prime Minister, President, Opposition Leader, and say that they make 15,000 US a month, and our Prime Minister, President makes 8,000 US. So that's why that's where you're benchmarking the increases. It is a kind of vacuum that we don't have a lot of information about what prompted the recommendations in this instance.
Well, it's a little bit. I agree with you, Paula, and it comes across a little vague because on one hand, I know there was private. I don't want to say private sector involvement, but I think some of it may have been outsourced in terms of certainly the not only the job evaluation, but the remuneration linking to the job evaluation. So I believe some segments of it may have been outsourced. I'm not 100% sure. But certainly, because you would have had one playing field that would have come forward a few months ago that was refused by the state on the lobbying of certain sectors that this was unsatisfactory in how it was, whatever markers they used back then, as you're suggesting, Paul. And then those markers had to be revisited for a lot of those positions. And I'm sure there are some positions that are still not satisfied in how it was considered against it. Because you know what happens to a lot of times when people are doing these job evaluation exercises, they do it from a generic point of view. They don't understand the contextual relevance of certain positions in an intimate way to understand what the workload is. So they make certain assumptions and paint a broad brush in terms of how they see it eventually. A certain subjectivity comes into it, even though they're trying not to be. But unless there are certain positions, unless you're actually following that job for a day or 2 days or for a week, you will have no context really in terms of the volume of work required.
And
I have a call on hold
to
for
be
you.
fair,
Long
in some instances, the issue is not the actual employee in the state sector. The issue is there are systemic challenges in the sector or in that particular office that prevent productivity or inhibit productivity or stop the person from doing the job effectively.
You can have that too. All right, let's grab this call, gentlemen. Good morning. Thanks for holding.
Good morning, Steve. I was enjoying the conversation.
Okay.
I would like to think why compare the other countries to Trinidad? People that work in the government, for the government in Trinidad, some of them, because they're working for the government, they don't really put in a full 8 hours. So you can't compare Trinidad workers to who getting more money out in Jamaica or America or wherever else. Why don't they take the money and the money that the union asking for, the overtime and whatnot, take that money and pay off all who they owing? Because I find they're getting
but let me interrupt you here. Where it is that you get that a lot of the public sector doesn't work 8 hours.
If you walk in a government office at 3 o'clock, people done already washing their face and hand and telling you that this closed and that closed. Where you living, Richard?
Because some people start work at 7. There's flexi hours within the public sector. So some places start work at 7 and some offices close at 3, some offices close at 3:15 in terms of the public, but some people will still be in work, but they close off to the public at 3. Then you have some people that work from 9 to 5. To 5 o'clock, they're still in the office. So you have flexi hours that operate. So I don't think that you walking into an office and seeing somebody washing their hands is a broad brush with which you could paint the public sector.
Richard, I don't know where you live. I really don't know. But what I'm saying, they could take that money. I think they have getting enough money right now, and a lot of people in the country need money. Just imagine you getting I'm just saying $50,000 a month. It have people working for just $5,000, not less. Why you want more pay? What you doing? It have
You're
people
talking about the hierarchy of are you talking about judges and politicians? Is that what you're talking about?
Everybody who getting,
because the average public sector worker ain't getting that.
Then it have managers, they just driving around whole day in the government vehicle, picking up the chick, dropping off the children, and all this nonsense.
People like to make these broad statements with no evidence.
And speculative and
just like to make these statements because
somebody's
safe in the past.
That's a non-productive.
That is just something a statement people like to make to bolster an argument.
Thank you, San Fernando.
We have evidence to support it. It's something that the people like to repeat with
come on,
a sense that everybody doing that. And it's not true.
Are there people that are not as productive as they could be? Of course,
absolutely.
In the private sector too, but don't broad brush in that sense. Come on.
Because I like to say it, and there's several public sector entities that work very efficiently. Like I saw a TikTok of somebody, one of these influencers, who said the family just had a baby, and they went into a REMA to get the child's birth certificate, and he did a TikTok on the fact that he and his wife were so surprised and impressed that they went in, and they walked out with the child's birth certificate, hard copy, in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
because it was an efficient process and system.
Yeah,
so there are areas in the public sector shines.
Sometimes you have people in public sector offices who are there from 7 till 7 in the night.
Yeah.
And then sometimes later, and sometimes all 10 o'clock in the night, which is not really great, but all 10 o'clock in the night and 11 o'clock in the night, you have emails coming in and emails being answered back and forth.
Good for
No,
them.
all of that taking place. People have a misconception. I think I'm not saying that all of the public service works well, but there is a lot of it that people
That
are
actually
working
will,
very hard.
Steve is not there to press the button, so we were saying earlier on, Richard, before you joined, that 2 other officers have now been
Yes, who is exonerated the
freed.
correct word?
Freed.
This freed.
There's no trial, so you can't say exonerate. Freed.
Yeah.
Because of insufficient evidence.
Yeah,
Like
I saw
your
that
colleagues
on news
before.
last night, and I was like, "What? Anyway? This everything is happening in threes, eh? So this is
14
the
now.
third one. This is the third one. So there's always say that the old people say that everything is happening in threes. Somebody dead in the neighborhood, they say, "Oh God, 2 more people to dead."
But I mean, it speaks volumes because these cases are now high profile. They involve the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and officers in the service. There's no adjudication of innocence or guilt. The matters collapsed because of insufficient evidence, so they were not allowed to continue by the master. And it doesn't bode well, one, for the characters of the individuals, because by being charged, your character is a question mark, right?
And there's a question mark.
Right. And then the matters weren't seen to the end of the trial because of insufficient evidence. So they suffered character damage, and no one knows whether it actually happened or not. Because somebody failed them on the job. And what will happen to those people now? We heard the commissioner say 3 officers are being investigated, and they want a thorough investigation into what happened and why the evidence wasn't presented to the prosecutors, XYZ. But you know that going into the room, right? You know the room we talk about, right?
It's I mean, not to be unfair to the 2 guys, but I assume it's 2 guys, I'm not sure. The 2 police officers, but that's how the system works. If the state can't prove its case, because remember, you are judged innocent until proven guilty. So if the state can't prove a case beyond reasonable doubt against you, or not supplying evidence within a certain timelines, that's what can happen.
Let me put up a comment here so people can see what I'm responding to. We broad brush the police service with levels of corruption. Yes, we do. You say they have no evidence to support that. Okay. You live in La La Land. Several police officers have been charged and convicted. And the head of the service, the manpower report, the Minister of National Security, the Prime Minister in different iterations have all spoken about the levels of corruption in the police service. So, okay.
We don't have any calls coming through, so let's grab a couple. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
2 things. You had a gentleman call Mr. Wallace, and he was speaking about the issue with credit cards and that kind of stuff. And he mentioned something. He said that the bank don't know what you purchase with credit cards. I'm not sure if I understood properly what he said, because I had credit card and using the credit card, there were special charges when you purchase things at certain places. Okay, for example, I used to purchase something they call USDT. That is when you're doing crypto business with crypto, and the bank don't allow you to purchase. Didn't want you to purchase crypto with credit. So there's a company they call Wise that you purchase, and then there's always a way to do it. And they used to have special charges anytime you use the credit card for that. So I don't fully understand what he meant by the bank. No, what you do
when your bank gives you a credit card statement, my bank tells me where I purchased. It doesn't say what I purchased. And my credit card statement, not so, Richard?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It tells you where you made the transaction. It doesn't tell you what the transaction purchased. So maybe that's what he meant.
Yes, that's okay. All right. And the second thing is this thing with the SRC and salary. I think people not really understanding what that okay. For example, I see in the papers the opposition leader said, "Don't raise my salary." I think if she used that term, that is misleading the public, because the SRC, you cannot ask to raise your salary. The prime minister or the opposition ask them. The SRC do a survey, and based on what they find and how they adjust that to suit it. So it's the office that the salary of the office. It's not an individual thing to say, well, the prime minister.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So it's the position.
So I don't know if what I understand people is saying that you raise the prime minister, what he want more money for, and look how much money he get. It is not so that is go.
But in politics, people personalize things.
And
the statement is not absent of politics.
Based on that is how they do the raising salary. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right, not the personality who currently
occupies. Whoever the office holder is will benefit from it.
The position itself. So, good morning, caller. So saying don't raise my salary is not a productive way of challenging.
But it sounds better to the political followers.
I guess it does.
Yeah, that's all.
Comes across.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. No, I totally agree with the previous caller, but I just want to add something additional to it. I listened to some of the comments from the viewers, and I think they're mixing up the increase in your salary as to your increment or bonuses based on performance. Now, when it is that you apply for a job based on the responsibility that's given in that position, the salary goes with that responsibility. Your performance will be based on certain metrics, and thereby you get an increment or a bonus, right, based on performance. And even then, there are systems in play that will check your performance, and if you're not performing, then there are certain actions that could be taken in order either you get office or you get demoted or whatever the case will be, right? So I think that the callers in themselves, I think they are mixing up the two, and that conversation probably needs to be had to enlighten people. And the next thing too is that it becomes so politicized now that we are focusing more on the politicians and not recognizing that the SRC is not just about the politicians themselves, but heads of department, the chief officer, the commissioner of police, the permanent secretary, and all those persons are head of departments themselves. You can't have your daughters or your son aspiring to reach a position, and when they reach a position, then it is that you're saying you're against them getting an increase in salary, right? So I just say I add my little 2 cents to that. Sometimes I think that we look at these individuals as if they belong to a different planet, right? Thanks so much.
All right, caller. Thank you so much. Have a good day. All right. We have time to take about 1 or 2 short calls before we head into our headlines and then our morning poll.
This country is a highly politically divided country, so it's not surprised that politics gets dragged into almost everything, whether it's a productive conversation or not in that way. So.
I saw a beautiful image that I sent to my sister, and I said to share with you and your daughters. And it was an animated picture, I mean, cartoon-like, but it's all of these black women with champagne glasses in their hands, sitting on top of a building, watching America burn, basically. And one of them has a jersey that says 92%, because that's how many black women voted for the Democrats. They're probably, I think they are the strongest group that supports Democrats. So she has on a jersey marked 92%, and they're all drinking champagne, watching buildings in the distance burning.
Caller morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I wanted to clear up something, a comment by a caller from San Fernando. She mentioned the fact that many times you go to government offices and it's not 4 o'clock yet, and certain sections close up and you can't get things done.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact, but that's a policy in respect of the collection of cash in government offices. All government cashiers, except exempted specially, close at 3 o'clock. So that any transaction that you have to pay for after 3, more likely than not, when you go there, they will tell you, well, look, you can't get it done now. You have to come back tomorrow because the cash is closed at 3. A good purpose, because there's a need to reconcile these transactions and things before 4, so that the police could accompany the cashiers generally to a location to store the money. That has existed from time immemorial. I don't know if they could change it, but that's a fact too. Many times people go to the offices and they say, oh, they close already, so and so. But that's a legal practice. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All righty. All right, Rich, do you have newspapers with you?
Don't ask him that. He always has papers.
That's
Thank
true.
you, Paul. You know.
I was looking in the papers this morning for this school kid, this young man who got knocked down on the party bus route yesterday. I haven't seen anything. I actually saw that. Traffic. And the young man, it was around 8:45. Brown
Did he die? I hope he didn't die.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Anyway, let me start with the Daily Express for today. Today, of course, is Tuesday, November 26th. The main headline, don't raise my salary. Opposition leader refuses increase recommended by SRC. Don't raise my salary. That's the headline on the Daily Express. The main picture is ready to fly. Junior aircraftman Fortune from the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard shows how a Black Hawk flying helmet for an American Apache helicopter is fitted to successful Lavender Secondary School student Mirani Williams during a youth rally at Queen's Hall in St. Anne's yesterday. So that's the main picture. And on the back page, of course, it's more news. UN resident coordinator praises youth parliamentarians treasure TNT. Let me go in to get some of the sports news. Scenting victory, roach seals torment Bangladesh batters as Windies closing on the win. Hammers blank Magpies. Powell joins Narayan and Russell at KKR. Ronaldo double puts Al Nasser on course for AFC knockout, and Roach positive about West Indies pace bowling group. So that's it for some of the sports news in the Daily Express today. Moving on to the Newsday. The headline in the Newsday today, 2 cops beat bribery charges. High Court master, insufficient evidence against officers. Government MPs mum on SRC report. And the main picture is that of the scrapyard dealers, members of the Scrap Iron Dealers Association, protest outside a scrapyard in Penal. Apparently, they're saying some foreigners are taking over certain scrapyards. I don't know who the foreigners are, but they're up in arms about it. That's what I'm on news last night. So that's the main picture. And on the back page, Roach and Seals too hot for Bangladesh in first test. Windies inch closer to win. And Pleasantville and Five Rivers vie for SSFL Girls Big 5 title. Moving on to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian for today. The last of our 3 dailies for this morning. And the headline they went with, 2 more cops freed. Brings to 14 the number of officers released on criminal charges within the last 7 days. A brother jailed for 11 counts of raping sister. Bizarre. Businessman Alan Warner's firms lose quarry appeal. And standing against gender-based violence, that's the main picture, where you have Malika Thomas, Sunshine Anderson, and Makisha Burnett demonstrate their push-forward challenge gesture during the National Youth Rally on Gender-Based Violence at Queen's Hall in St. Anne's. So all of that is on the front page of the TNT Guardian today, and on the back page, Qatar friendly for Warriors. TTFA negotiating with Saudi Arabia for second match. And it's a hit for 6. Stamp Army, Coquelicot Cavaliers. Is that a name of a group? Jesse Bhutan plays a hook for 6 runs against Woodland Steel Pan players during match 2 of the Dream 11 Trinidad T10 Blast at the Brian. Oh, Lord, there's too many names. They had a cricket match in the Brian Ara Stadium. There's a picture. That's it for our 3 dailies this morning. So now you know what the main stories are in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. Let's say good morning, good night to the officers, the prison officers. A prison officer crashed into the Arrow board at the construction work site last evening in Chase Village. He succumbed to his injuries. Condolences to him and his family, and of course his fraternity. All right, our poll yesterday, we asked you, do you expect the SRC's report recommending salary increases to be approved? Well, you voted online, and 55 said yes.
My suggested question this morning, another M, is based on this. Where is it?
Where is it? Here it is.
Do not believe the Prime Minister should get an increase at this time. I do not believe the President should get an increase at this time. I do not believe that Kamla Prasad, Mrs. Opposition Leader, should get an increase at this time. No. Now is not the time when you're offering people 1% and 2% and 4%. It is obscene.
So do you agree with the position of the opposition leader on the SRC's recommendations? That's our poll this morning. Do you agree with the position of the opposition leader on the SRC's recommendations? Yay or nay, yes or no, however you want to call it. Do you agree? Yes or no? That's our poll this morning. 222-TALK, 222-8255. You North Americans, toll free at 866-525-1099. People on streaming platforms, you can send your votes via the messaging portals there. And of course, if you're listening to us on smart devices or watching us on MNE TV, you can WhatsApp us at 868-318-1021. So you know how to vote and where to vote. So there's our poll. You can see it. If you're watching us, you can see it. If you're not watching us, I'll read it to you one more time. Do you agree with the position of the opposition leader on the SRC's recommendations?
All right. So give us a call. WhatsApp 318-1021. Facebook and on YouTube. Lester Craigwell says yes, 100%. Right? Do you agree with the position of the leader, well, the opposition leader, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, on the SRC's recommendations? Yes or no? All right, you can vote. Let's see, we have any votes on WhatsApp. We have Kenwin saying yes. Southman saying yes. Good morning to you, Bobby. Hope all is well. Good morning, caller. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sandy Grandy, yes.
All right, Sandy Grandy, thank you so much. Let's say happy birthday going out to Mr. Esmond Ford. Good morning to you, Mr. Ford. Cascade St. Anne's says yes. Danrad says yes. Black Pearl. Oh, I haven't heard from you in a long time, Black Pearl. Hope all is well. She says no. Vincent in the UK says no. How's the weather across there, my friend?
They had some flooding over the weekend and stuff.
Oh yeah, they had a lot of rain out by Wales. Let's see. My mouse is stuck again. Okay, I can't get my mouse is gone. Why is this?
Maybe try changing the battery.
It's not that.
To talk 222-8255. US and Canada toll free 866-525-1099 and WhatsApp 868-318-1021. Do you agree with the position of the Leader of the Opposition on the SRC's salary increase recommendations? Yes or no?
Yeah, my mouse is not working. I don't know what, so I can't. Oh, here we go. No, it's not working. Let me check again.
Oh my God, the mouse was working yesterday. Marcia Rock says no, Richard.
No, but I think some of those above that he didn't see. Did he say arch nemesis?
No, you'll have to do it, Rich.
Arch nemesis
says no. Slick Money Grip says no. Julia Asbati says yes. Merle's Kitchen says no. Marcia Rock says no. Colt Finch says yes. Cheryl Henry says yes.
Yeah, I don't know about the WhatsApp votes.
Well, I'll try and see if I get up north says yes. Kathy Ann says no. Dre out in Rio Claro says yes. Roger Sewing says yes. Yeah, my mouse is dead.
Is it a connected mouse or a Bluetooth mouse?
Connected.
Well, go in the newsroom and take a mouse, Steve.
Yeah, give me a minute.
From Dennis's computer.
Right, back up. Nothing like a good lash. Miss Ingrid out in Tucson, Arizona says yes. I did Roger Sewing. I did Dre. Kathy Ann up north. Right. I don't know which ones you did. You did Milk, Marcia Rock, Cool Finch says yes. Cheryl Henry says yes. Good morning, Beauty Culture. I think Richard did those before. All right. Do you agree with the position of the opposition leader on the SRC recommendations? He says not at this time. Let's check WhatsApp here again. Okay.
Mr. should get an increase at this time.
What is it?
I do not believe the president should get an increase at this time. I do not believe that Kamala Prasad, Mr. Opposition Leader, should get an increase at this time.
MPs didn't seem very enthused about what you were saying.
They
didn't seem excited at all.
They didn't even shake their head. Beauty Culture says yes. Johnson Noel says yes. Royalty Forever says yes. Kurt Hope out in Nashville says yes. All right. Do you agree with the position of the opposition leader on the SRC's recommendations? Yes or no? All right. You have like 30 seconds again before we head into major news.
Let's see the opposition MPs one more time now, please. Paul, just for my own satisfaction.
I believe the Prime Minister should get an increase at this time. I do not believe the President should get an increase at this time. I do not believe that Kamala Prasad.
Is that what you wanted to see?
Yes, Khadija. I mean, it's like, what the hell is she talking about?
Look.
It's really bad, you know.
They don't seem to
I didn't notice that.
Recessor opposition leader.
Gosh.
He's like, I forgot to
Start from the top again. One more time, bro.
Body language is a hell of a thing, eh? Body
I
language.
believe that Kamala Prasad, recessor opposition leader, should get an increase.
Okay, thank you for the little laugh.
Wayne Lala says yes. Let me just give these votes here. Lenny James says no. Chris J says no. Eve, I passed by last week Friday. I didn't open the gate. You're peeping through your window. I came for lunch. Eve, she says yes. All right, let's get into our major news right now. AV is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
2 more police officers have their bribery charges dismissed in court. Professor Ramesh Deosaran says new PSC won't make a difference in any way. A man is stabbed in Port of Spain in plain view of drivers and pedestrians. 19 confirmed deaths from dengue locally, over 2,000 confirmed cases. And Bangladesh set 334 runs to win in first test match against West Indies in Antigua. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Santel Bab. Good morning. 2 more police officers have had their bribery charges dismissed in court less than a week after 5 police officers were freed of extortion charges due to insufficient evidence. 2 of their colleagues involved in the same matter have now also been released. A lack of evidence was yesterday cited as the reason for the case being dismissed against officers Kiran Morang and Nicholas Ragoobar. Morang and Ragoobar were charged with misbehavior in public office, along with police officers Keenan Williams, Evans Mitchell, Kevin Gomez, Latifa Lazama, and Jabari McIntyre. They were accused of accepting a $30,000 bribe to forego the prosecution of a businessman. This follows the release of 7 Eastern Division officers on corruption charges on November 18th. With yesterday's case, the total number of officers freed on criminal charges in the past week has risen to 14. PC's Kiran Morang and Nicholas Ragoobar were dismissed by High Court Master Sarah Da Silva yesterday as she made a similar ruling to the one in relation to their colleagues during a hearing yesterday. The officers reportedly found camouflage clothing, marijuana, and ammunition during a search of a couple's home at 5 Rivers, Aruca, and allegedly solicited a $30,000 bribe and a quantity of marijuana to not prosecute them. Prosecutor Siobhan Noriega represented the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions at the hearing. Last Wednesday, Master Da Silva freed all except Morang and Ragoobar based on an application from their lawyer, Renuka Rambajan, over the insufficiency of the evidence against them. In her decision, Master Da Silva also cited prosecutorial missteps and repeated non-compliance with the previous court orders. She reserved her decision in relation to Morang and Ragoobar, who were represented by Darren Mitchell, before making a similar ruling yesterday. Criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran cites structure and process as 2 of the factors which could impact on the effectiveness of the new Police Service Commission. He spoke on the Power Breakfast Show on Monday morning during an interview. Professor Deosaran claims despite numerous complaints by the Prime Minister about the Police Service Commission, nothing has been done by either him or even the opposition leader to make improvements in the PSC.
With the Police Service Commission, Dr. Rowley has complained when the Gravy Griffith issue arose very bitterly about the inefficiency and the unsuitability of the Police Service Commission, going so far, Paul, as to say that the present structure is worse than what we had before in the days of Pandey and Manning. But yet nothing is done. And Kamala Prasad Bisesa herself, even though she was one of the architects in 2006 for this new formulation, she's remaining quiet on the point. And even though 1 or 2 of her members expressed dissatisfaction with the Police Service Commission, nobody on either side is doing anything. And this is where the public has to come now and press forward.
He claims he did not expect the current iteration of the new commission to make a difference in any way.
The commission is imprisoned by its structure and by process. Whatever the new commission decides to do with its structure either digging deep into the methodology and what. The bottom line remains a political one. They can do what they want, and when the list comes through the President of Parliament, as the Constitution requires, the Prime Minister stands up and put number 4 as number 1 without any convincing reason. So all this paraphernalia about doing this and doing that at the top is a shadow boxing.
An argument between two men in Upper Port of Spain on Monday led to one being stabbed in plain view of passing drivers and pedestrians. The stabbing occurred at around 9:30 a.m. while the victim, a 45-year-old security guard, was standing at the corner of Oxford and Abercrombie Streets. A man approached him and the two began arguing and then fighting. During the fight, the attacker took out a knife, stabbed the victim in the right shoulder and left ankle, and ran off. Eyewitnesses called the police, who took the victim to the Port of Spain General Hospital, where he is warded in stable condition. The 21st National Youth Parliament addressed the issue of the use of artificial intelligence in the classroom on Monday. Students from various schools debated the motion to call on the government of Trinidad and Tobago to develop a policy to integrate the ethical and responsible use of AI into the education curriculum to enhance learning, foster critical thinking, and prepare students for the modern workforce while ensuring safeguards to protect their well-being. Leader of the opposition and member of parliament for Saparia, Brianna Atwell of St. Stephen's College, suggested the creation of a body which will review responsible use of AI in the classroom, adding a system must be put in place to guard the venture properly.
In which I call on the government to collaborate, and if not, that there will not be a stumbling block to the pivotal advancement of this nation. My bench will address key measures like age-appropriate AI exposure, thereby having an age limit, ethical governance, and combating the negative implications of plagiarism and even the stunting of cognitive growth. We are also calling for a body to be created for the responsible and ethical use of AI in the classroom and even the curriculum.
Sohaila McCool, Minister of Education and Member of Parliament for St. Anne's East from Bishop High School, Tobago, claimed the government has done its research and work on this matter and is ready to take it a step further.
A nation's ability to harness AI technology is dependent on the vision and commitment of its government and people. And we, the government, are committed, as proven by the numerous programs developed under our administration. Our commitment is dependent on and reflected through responsible planning, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, MP for Princestown Precious Regis cited the importance of having the necessary support systems to make a move a success, adding outside of this, it will be talk with little action.
Spoke about a performance, but what a performance she gave to say a lot of nothing. The government says they care, but only now they're rushing to address the inequities. Students are still without devices. Rural areas are still and have been without any internet access for too long. It's like saying, I care about fixing the potholes, yet cars still bouncing down the highway like it's Juve morning. Let us get it together.
The number of confirmed laboratory deaths from dengue stands at 19 locally, while there are 2,004 laboratory confirmed cases of dengue fever. This information was contained in the Ministry of Health's latest update on dengue cases within the country. As at November 22nd, 2024, a total of 1,326 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners or occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. Of this, 83 property owners or occupiers have, thus far, been identified for the consideration or institution of legal proceedings for non-compliance. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. In an item of sport in cricket, 334 runs is the victory target for Bangladesh to get going into the fifth and final day of the first test match against West Indies at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua. The visitors closed play on day 4 on 109 for 7, still needing 225 runs to get, with 3 wickets going to Kimar Roach and Jaden Seals. Earlier, Taskin Ahmed took 6 for 64 to restrict the Windies to 152 in their second innings. Scores in the match: West Indies 450 for 9 declared and 152 all out. Bangladesh 269 for 9 declared. Well, finally, here's your weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, occasional partly cloudy to cloudy periods with showers will interrupt a fair and breezy day. Some of these showers may become heavy and or thundery. Generally fair night despite isolated showers. Gusty winds and street or flash flooding may occur in or near heavy showers with thunderstorms. All marine interests are being advised to exercise caution. You can expect a temperature high this morning of 32 degrees Celsius, both at Piarco International Airport and Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, it is 26 degrees Celsius at Piarco and 27 degrees Celsius at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, 2 more police officers have their bribery charges dismissed in court. Professor Ramesh Diosaran says new PSC won't make a difference in any way. A man is stabbed in Port of Spain in plain view of drivers and pedestrians. 19 confirmed deaths from dengue locally, over 2,000 confirmed cases. And Bangladesh set 334 runs to win in first test match against West Indies in Antigua. I'm Avril Sintilbab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital, with more news coming your way in detail at 12 noon and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. You can join her again come 8 o'clock for our news brief. All right. Thank you so much, Evie. Right. Let's see what's happening in traffic. That accident by when you come off the flyover by NP and Ragoobarsingh, I think that's cleared up. There is another accident by Mova Junction. All right. It's telling me by the priority bus route. Not again. Yeah, and Lady Young Road. So that intersection, there is an accident there. Hope that cleared up. Any more to tell you anything else? There's traffic everywhere this morning. Everywhere. Yep, I'm seeing another one here. This is by Wallerfield, Churchill Roosevelt Highway East. Ouch. That's after Demerara Road. Okay, anything on the solo? Don't think so. Haven't heard anything. No, that's it. All right. Let's see if we have any more votes on our poll. Which one's our last one? Wayne Lala, beauty culture. I have somebody saying yes. Let's see. Okay. Eddie out in Staten Island says no. And that's it.
All right, so our poll this morning was, do you agree with the position of the opposition leader on the SRC's recommendations? We had 31 people voting on the poll this morning in the allotted time, and of the 31 people, 21 of you said yes, you agreed with the opposition leader concerning the matter, and 10 of you said no, you did not agree with her. So, of course, so that's the split, 21-10. So the yeas have it this morning in our poll. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, throughout programming, and we'll give you the final result tomorrow morning, which will be midweek already, Wednesday, as we drive quickly to the end of November and on to Christmas. So we'll give you the final poll results tomorrow morning, just before we start the new poll, whatever that is tomorrow, Wednesday.
All right. Let's say good morning. Get out to Dr. Dex Driver. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hope all is well.
I'm good.
Are you feeling the Christmas spirit yet? 29 days?
No, I'm a bit more sort of worried about trying to wind up all the work I have to do before the end of the year. And our big conference coming up in beginning of the year in February. So that always has me very concentrating on all that stuff.
Yeah, now would be that busy time for that conference. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Of course,
what conference is that, just out of curiosity?
That's the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Conference. That's our big event for the year. We usually do it at the end of January, but because Carnival's a little later in 2025, we're doing it 10th of February. We like to do it sort of in the Carnival season, but not too close to Carnival.
Yeah.
It's difficult with hotels and things.
Gotcha. So morning, Dax. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time. Of course, energy is always in the spotlight in a Trinidad and Tobago context. And of course, we have the transition that's taking place in North America, in the United States, to that leadership in January next year, which has the potential to affect us. How worried is the energy industry about that transition? Or are they pretty optimistic that it will, there will still be that cross-border monetization in terms of dragon and stuff like that?
Well, I just think the position at the moment is that people are just sort of waiting to see. I think that it's sort of not much point in speculating too much, about what may or may not change. There's different sort of views which you're hearing about it. I think clearly it adds some political risk, but it's just something which we will have to find a way of dealing with. The multinationals who are working on those projects, trying to bring gas to Trinidad, along with the national gas company, they're very accustomed to dealing with those sort of situations. So let's just hope that that the things will continue to proceed like they have been over the past couple of years, and we'll see natural gas being imported to Trinidad to be processed here, to be re-exported as petrochemicals or as LNG to international markets.
You know what has always been a little bit confusing to me? Sometimes you speak to economists, and from the politicians' perspective, they talk about 2026 and they talk about 2027 as being bright lights on the horizon, so to speak, with regard to the energy sector. Is that accurate or not? Because economists don't seem as bright-eyed about it as the politicians, at least the narrative that the politicians indicate with regard to that. What's your take on it? Because you're involved in the sector, so
yeah. So what's driving that sort of conversation about better times in a couple of years' time from now is that there's one major project in particular which is set to come on stream in 2027. That's the Manatee project, which is the big Shell natural gas project, which will significantly increase Trinidad's gas production. But obviously, you're always fighting against the natural decline of gas reservoirs. They decline at sort of 15% per annum if you don't reinvest. So you've got to always fight against that and bring new production in. So we'll have some natural declines, which we're fighting with. There are projects which are smaller projects which are coming in over the next couple of years. There's I don't know if you just saw the news that the Mento project. They're building the platform and the jacket for that in the Tofco yard in La Brea. That's just left there and going out onto the location where it will be installed. So that's coming in. BP has some projects coming in, and there's the next BP project which has been sanctioned, which is Coconut as well, which is coming along. So there are projects which will come in which will help the gas production. But the big one is a Manatee project, and so that's why I think it's driving that narrative about 2027. And it's just because it takes time to a massive project like that. It takes a while to develop it. You have to build a platform. You have to drill all of the wells. You have to install all the infrastructure to bring that gas to the market. The Dragon field is also a possibility in that time frame as well. So those I think the two things which people are looking at. And that's
Dr. Driver,
narrative.
Energy Minister Stuart Young has indicated that the government, I guess through him, have been having continuous talks with both Republicans and Democrats. Can you give us a sense of what now President Trump-elect's approach was to Venezuela back when he was president in the first 4 years that he was president? What was his approach to Venezuela then?
Well, I mean, I think Trump in that first period had implemented the sort of the maximum pressure strategy and introduced sanctions onto Venezuela. But we don't know if that's going to be the case again. I think it's just too early to tell that, and we just need to engage so the Trinidad government needs to engage with the authorities in the US, and we'll see where that is. We have long-term licenses with Venezuela. So not we, I mean, Shell and NGC has long-term licenses with Venezuela and BP as well, to develop some of these cross-border fields. And so the issue will be then the sanctions. And there's a license which exists at the moment, which the US has granted, which means that Trinidad is not subject to the general sanctions placed on on people doing business with Venezuela, which the Americans have placed on people doing business with Venezuela. And we'll just have to wait and see if those will be extended.
And those are the OFAC licenses,
Trinidad, they will be,
right?
yeah, correct. So hopefully for Trinidad, those will be extended. We just have to wait and see.
Is it accurate that those licenses are year by year, or what's the time?
They were 2-year licenses.
2-year licenses.
My understanding is that they will always be that there will always be short-term licenses. OFAC doesn't give long 30-year licenses that you'll have to to develop an oil field. It's because their licenses are around a sanctions regime. They're not oil field licenses.
So they're what's the word? The licenses that give you a window to work with in the particular region, given the sanction regime that's existing there.
Yes.
Even after those sanction regimes.
And there might be changes to the general policy as well. So there might be changes to the whole sanctions regime. We don't know.
Yeah. In terms of that's Dragon and Manatee, and I guess these
and the Mannequin Coquina field as well. That's the BP field.
Yeah, these are very important.
It doesn't. So just to be very clear about that, the Manatee is not impacted by the sanctions regime.
Yeah.
The Manatee is on the there's a cross-border field, Manatee Loran. What is being developed at the moment is the Trinidad side. So that is not affected by the sanctions regime. But the potential to bring in the large volumes of gas from the Venezuela side of that field, would be impacted by the sanctions, by any sanctions regime. But there's no that license on the Venezuela side is not held by Shell or NGC, which is developing the Trinidad side. It's held by Chevron on the Venezuelan side of the boundary. There have been some indications there might be some changes to that, but nothing has been announced yet.
And of course, these potential gas sources are critically important given our reduction in gas production locally in terms of the volume we're producing. And what about are you comfortable with the present price of gas globally? Because that's also something that needs to be taken into consideration.
So the present prices of natural gas, natural gas the price really varies between different geographical locations. So the price is fairly low in the US, as it has been for quite a long time now, but it's very high in Europe and in Japan. So fortunately, our LNG pricing, so the LNG which we export, is benchmarked against a combination of the Japan price, the Europe price, and then it's index linked to the price of oil. Now, oil has been declining and is not in a high price environment at the moment, but both Europe and Japan LNG prices are high at the moment. So that sort of that more diversified way of pricing our natural gas is I think to the benefit. I think often the media in Trinidad looks at the US gas price, which is what you see on CNN and the American news channels, and it sort of assumes that's the Trinidad gas price, but it isn't. Our gas is not going to the US anymore. Very small volumes go to the US occasionally. In winter, some of it goes to Boston occasionally. But most of it goes to Europe or to South America. Some of it goes to Asia as well. But the pricing is linked to those Asian and European prices, which are high at the moment.
Do you expect any changes given the geopolitics of Trump now and Russia-Ukraine, which has had some impact on global commodity energy prices?
But I think we should always expect some changes. I don't know what those will be. The geopolitics is very complicated. But the fundamentals, I think, for Europe in particular will remain that they even if there was peace now, which we all hope there will be in Ukraine. I don't think Europe is probably going to go back to relying upon Russian pipeline gas anytime soon. So Europe will be looking to build up its domestic supplies of gas and gas from other sources. Obviously, the continued big push for renewables in Europe as well. So that I think that pattern will continue despite any hopeful peace in Ukraine.
I wanted to bring up the issue of exploration in the Trinidad and Tobago context and within the fields available to us. And if you could talk a little bit about what sort of exploration activities are taking place currently, and is there any optimism about any big finds?
Yeah. So okay. So let's divide that into two things. One, there have been some big finds which have not yet been sanctioned for development. So the big find, the Calypso project, that is the major find, which is in the waters northeast of Tobago, and between Tobago and Barbados. Major gas finds there, and the companies are now trying to work on the plans to economically develop that gas and bring it to market in Trinidad. That is a big find which is there, but you have to then ensure that you can get the economics right. And it's technically challenging. It's in deep water, so which means it's expensive. So you have to get the economics right to develop it. There seems to be progress happening in that area. There was an announcement from the Minister of Finance in his budget presentation about the good progress on agreeing the fiscal terms. So that's the taxation terms around that field, and hopefully we'll see that moving through to an investment decision for that gas, which has already been found. Then there is the new exploration programs. There's a deep water exploration program which Shell and BP have been involved in off the East Coast, and they collected seismic data, and they'll be assessing that now, and they're making decisions about whether if they want to drill some wells to go after potential finds in that area. And then there's been a bid round recently, shallow water bid round, which closed last May. And we've had, very excitingly, that it went between the bid round closing and the production sharing contract, the contract which allows companies to begin the exploration process, was done in record time. So there was a real sense of acceleration in that from the Ministry of Energy. And then Shell immediately began an exploration program on one of those blocks. BP has just signed the PSC just last week for the North Coast Marine area, so off Trinidad's north coast, and that they will begin an exploration program in that area soon. So there is exploration going on in Trinidad. Obviously, the deep water areas are perhaps where the potential for big finds would be, but there's still a lot of potential for smaller fields to be developed in Trinidad and the waters of Trinidad and Tobago. So that is still, I think this idea that there's an end to the Trinidad gas industry, I think, is a bit overblown. We've had declining production. There's things we've had to get right to increase production domestically, but there is still a lot of natural gas in Trinidad to be developed. There's gas which has been found and not developed. There's some small fields in that category as well. Small fields which have been found a while ago, and the economics weren't there to develop them, but some things are happening which might help those come in. And then there's the big exploration programs in the deeper water as well.
How important is Trinidad and Tobago's pursuit? Because we're talking energy, and we, of course, because the oil and gas sector are the main drivers of the economy, we focus on that. But the solar farm that's supposed to be coming on stream, I think it's a project of Shell is involved, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. How important are those types of projects into renewables, even while we're pursuing other gas sources?
They're very important. There's the first major solar project which is in construction. It's Shell, BP, and NGC with a minority shareholding. That's in construction in the sort of the Brecon Castle area behind Point Lisis at the moment. Its construction is underway. There are then potential new major renewable energy projects. We've just, I don't know if you saw the news, but just last week we began to collect wind data. So in order to develop wind power projects, you have to have sort of firm data where you know what the resource of the wind is, and it's not just like sort of putting your finger up and saying, "Oh, look, seems like windy," because you've got to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in these projects. So people need to get some level of assurance that what the wind resources will be there and sufficient to generate electricity to sell. So we've just begun a wind resource assessment. Two things called LiDARs. So these are, it's basically using like a laser to collect data on wind speeds. One located in Galeota, one in Waterloo in central Trinidad. So those are going to be collecting data over the next year, which hopefully will give us the data which is needed to develop some major wind projects. There's still potential for additional solar, large-scale solar. I think there was a targeting of some of the abandoned quarry lands in East Trinidad as potential places to put solar. The challenge with solar is it does take up quite a lot of land space. So you want to find locations where it's not sort of getting in the way of agriculture or other developments as well.
What do you expect that solar plant when it comes on stream, the one between Shell, BP, and BC, to mean for the sector? One of the comments coming from the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy is that because the country depends so heavily on gas to drive our own electricity needs, what can happen when that comes in stream is that the energy from that can power the country's part of the country's needs, while we can sell more gas that's available because of that. Is that the framework that we're working with it?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, the idea is, the more renewable energy we can produce, the less natural gas we have to use in electricity production. So the more natural gas which is then available for LNG, methanol, ammonia, and the other petrochemicals, the things which generate foreign exchange for the country. That is, definitely why we should be pursuing these renewable energy projects. Also, just to add to that as well, in terms of the long-term sustainability of our petrochemical sector, if we can develop large-scale renewable energy projects and then use those green low-carbon electrons to make hydrogen from water rather than hydrogen from natural gases, which is what we do at the moment, that can produce a stream of petrochemicals which has a lower carbon footprint. It's what they call green hydrogen. That then has a premium price internationally, and also means that you can use that to avoid some of the cross-border carbon adjustment mechanisms which are being brought in the European Union and elsewhere. It's also really good for the development, not just the displacing natural gas, but potentially in the future of producing greener petrochemicals, which then have a better market access. So that's why it's very, very important. This decarbonization drive isn't just a sort of a nice to have because we should be doing it because it's a good thing to do. It is also really important for the economics of our whole energy industry.
I've never heard that discussed before, so that's interesting information. I don't know if Paul has heard that before, that whole issue about the hydrogen, and that hydrogen being a possible energy source. Would it be an energy source maybe for like the companies in Point Lisas, etc.?
No, it's really what it would really be used for. That green hydrogen is the feedstock to go into ammonia. That's what the big use would be. So at the moment, ammonia is produced in Trinidad by breaking off not to get too technical with it, but the hydrogen atom from natural gas, from methane. You sort of split that apart and use that hydrogen atom. But you can also do the same with water. The only thing is it takes a lot of energy to do that from water. So that the economics have always, that's the technology which has been around for a long time, but the economics have just, haven't worked well. But now there's been a big focus on that and using renewable electricity to split that hydrogen atom. Then hydrogen atom you then put into the ammonia plant, and then it bonds with a nitrogen atom, and then that's what makes ammonia. If you get it from water rather than from natural gas, obviously, that is it's a cleaner source because you're not creating a CO. Clean it from the sense of carbon dioxide. You're not creating carbon dioxide, which is what you create at the moment when you split the methane atom into the carbon and the hydrogen. So I know it's a bit technical, but it is a good. It's a way of greening. Lowering the carbon footprint, so having less CO2 produced when you produce the ammonia.
I know. I spoke to Ken Julian's son. It's Peter Julian who is championing into that because he said the Philip Julian, who said that at that time, so about 3 years ago, that they had been championing the research in terms of one, doing the amount of water they would need, and two, the energy to split the atoms.
So. So that project is an active live commercial project which they're trying to close at the moment. A project called it's the New Gen project, potential major investment from a French company, HDF, and that's going through sort of the process at the moment, trying to get all the approvals, all the commercial elements in place. So let's hope that happens, because I think that would be a great project for Trinidad and puts us sort of at the forefront of that new industry.
One of the things we discussed post-budget, which I don't think has gotten a lot of traction, is your conversation about electricity rates and people who use more paying more, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, and looking at that regime in terms of the levels of subsidies that currently exists, not only residentially, but for commercial and industrial. Why do you think that, I think I know the answer, but I'll still ask the question, that conversation kind of went dead in the water?
Well, I think that people, it is a difficult conversation. I think people are almost deliberately making it more confusing than it needs to be, because essentially what you're saying is that give everyone a portion of that at a subsidized rate, and then the households which use more pay the market rate. I think that just makes good sense, politically and economically and socially. So I think that perhaps people who are using a lot of electricity don't want to pay more for it, and they therefore don't want to discuss it, perhaps.
Well, we're in an election cycle, so
yeah,
that's a big consideration for any change in subsidy structure in any country.
Yeah, of course.
Because it means people paying more, and people don't want to be hearing that they have to pay more of anything heading into an election cycle.
Yeah, and clearly, nobody wants to see people having to pay more, and that's why I think that you need to structure subsidies in such a way that it's targeted on the people who need the subsidy. So that's why it's better to subsidize public transport than it is to subsidize transport fuels, because public transport it's public. So subsidize the thing which is there for everybody. Don't subsidize the thing which only wealthier people get access to it.
Yeah. If we can go back to the Trump conversation, I mean, Trump has this is my assessment, been very America first in his overall philosophy. He's picked wars with China, with other major countries, putting America at the forefront of American development and American economic development and business. Do you get a sense that that's going to change the relationship between him and the Caribbean in any way in terms of foreign policy?
Yeah, I just think it's a bit early to be able to make that. I think let's judge from actions, and see what happens. But clearly there are elements, things happen which the changes in policy in the US which are going to shift the relationship. But we have to be the masters of our own destiny, and set how we want to interact with the world, and set our policies in the way which suits us in the Caribbean the best.
When Big Brother sneezes, we catch the cold.
Sure, but I mean, I think we just need to be able to adjust to those changes, and that's about having a resilient economy and making good decisions.
And what of Guyana and how Guyana is progressing, particularly in terms of energy? A lot of those big American companies are in Guyana presently, even with the Venezuelan situation and the consideration with Trinidad and Tobago. How do you think we're working hard enough to benefit from that boom in Guyana?
But if by we you mean the Trinidad private sector,
yes.
Certainly. The Trinidad private sector is very, very invested in Guyana. There's a lot of trade backwards and forwards. A lot of people from Trinidad investing there. A lot of skilled Trinidadian workers working there. A lot of Trinidadian companies, making investments, building partnerships with Guyanese companies. So I think that's all going on, and I think that there's clearly the government-to-government relationships. For me, what we need to be concentrating on is really making the CARICOM single market and economy operate as it's supposed to operate, as a single economy. That's where the focus needs to be. Free movement of people, free movement of capital, free movement of goods around the region, make a bigger market, and that'll be good for all of us.
Yeah, that always seems to be a challenge for CARICOM heads, though. They talk it, but they don't implement it. Because even, I mean, I think was it last year or the year before, they talked about, I think this June or July this year, by June, they would have settled the issue of anybody being able to go anywhere in the Caribbean and live and work, but still parliaments across the Caribbean haven't enacted the necessary legislation. So I think that's why a lot of the citizens of CARICOM tend to have not much confidence that the governance is really serious.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think that's all I can say. I think that it was very disappointing that we didn't see the full implementation of the free movement of people. That was something which we were very much welcomed. There is the skill certificate regime means that skilled individuals can move. So people with university degrees have that freedom to move, but we think that should be extended to everybody. There should be really free movement of people. We think that'll be good for everybody. It does mean some mindset shifts that people have to accept that you may have people coming to Trinidad from elsewhere in the region, but in the same way there's opportunities for Trinidadians to go out and work in the rest of the region. So I think we just need to make that shift. I think it'll be good for all economies in the CSME. If we had that free movement of people. But there's also things we need to do, movement of goods. There's a lot of trade barriers still which exist, a lot of what they call non-tariff barriers. So this is just how regulations work. So the Guyanese rightly complain about the difficulty of bringing food into Trinidad and some of the regulations around that. And those are things which just need to get fixed.
Yeah. Are you optimistic? Are you optimistic that it will get done in the short-term future, or you think it's more going to be medium and long-term?
There seems to be quite a big push behind things at the moment. I'm just a little worried. There's quite a few elections coming up in the region over the next year. That might delay things a little bit, but I'm hoping. I'm optimistic that in the medium term we'll see that there's a big drive, and the regional private sector is really pushing hard on the full implementation of the CSME. So let's just hope that the politicians go through. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the challenge is the way in which it operates is that you have to have the domestic legislation in each market to make those promises made at the heads of government real. So we just have to find the mechanism to make sure that happens. I think one of the decisions which was taken was that not everyone should have to move at the pace of the slowest. So that if people, are more willing, if you have a few of the bigger players in the region who are willing to move quickly, that they should move forward as fast as they can. So it'd be good to see Trinidad taking real leadership in that area. Still the biggest economy in the region.
Yeah. Would you be willing to take some calls, Dr. Driver, or you prefer not to?
Steve told me it was going to be short, so it's a bit more about time. I need to get.
We appreciate your time because we have another interview lined up that are just moving up from 8 o'clock. But thanks for being with us this morning. Always a pleasure talking to you and getting your insight in the energy sector.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Driver. All the best to you and your family.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah. I had an interview scheduled for 8 o'clock with Father Mark Georges, who's written a book. He's a Catholic priest on character building, but we can move it up to now. He's just organizing himself to log on.
I see steam coming out from Richard when you said that.
Why is that?
A priest on a program.
No. And
Richard will fizzle.
Richard is very close to priests. Richard is just talking, and Richard is the biggest Catholic amongst us.
I just wanted to say happy birthday to Carrie Ann Bayer. She's a magistrate, of course, and she's also the cousin of Mrs. R. Mrs. R reminded me that today is her birthday. So happy birthday, Carrie Ann. I hope you're having and will have a fantastic day today.
Happy birthday to Pradesh as well.
It'll be interesting to see how Trump deals with Venezuela, because he's not somebody who pulls punches. And if he can be strong in a country like China, I mean, is not going to flinch on Venezuela. So, and also Cuba. So we see how that evolves when he's sworn in January. Is it the 6th of January?
Yep. No, 96.
Putting his cabinet together.
No, it's 96. 20-something, I think.
No, we will see. He's no doubt going to have some sort of impact in the region. So, as we say, keep our fingers crossed that he doesn't rock the boat too much in the Caribbean and where Venezuela is concerned. But the good thing about it, as Dr. Driver pointed out, the manatee part of it will not be affected by the American politics in any way. But certainly the dragon part may or may not be affected. We don't know. Right, I'm waiting for Father Georges to log on so we could take a couple of calls in the meantime.
Yep. All right. 222-8255. Toll free North Americans. 866-525-1099. That's our numbers directly into our studio.
20th, Trinidad and Tobago says, thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, this cold is the worst. And it all started with a sneezing fit yesterday. You know? I don't know if it's the dust from the rains, but it went from sneezing to full-fledged flu.
Oh.
I'm going to get all kind of attitude from Avril St. Hill Bab this morning. Why you come here? You couldn't stay home and work. You come to bring a disease and your viruses. Oh gosh, go upstairs and work by yourself now. When you're in office, you have to be here.
That's exactly what she'll say.
I'm expecting it all. And by the way, can you buy me lunch? but leave the lunch by the door. Don't do it, you bring it over, you know.
Yeah, so we'll take a couple of your calls. Touch our tones, 222-8255. North Americans, toll free, 866-525-1099. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning, guys.
Morning.
Richard, I understand what you say when you say some workers are working hard in the public servants, right? Richard, it don't matter when you have people waiting. Next year, February will be 9 years for a deed. The person they purchased the land from had a deed dated 9 years ago. But you purchase it from the person, pay the lawyer to get the deed, and you're still waiting 9 years after. Then you ever try to transfer a vehicle?
Yeah,
I've transferred vehicles already.
Anything could happen in outside lunch hours, but not in the government service. They cannot get nobody else to fill in lunchtime to be a cashier.
In some parts, I have seen.
Possible.
I have
Some parts they stagger lunch.
People get serviced already.
No, and also it you ever travel in a taxi and you see the man who traveling have a work badge for a corporation and it's during the day and he's the taxi driver. I personally have a neighbor 2 streets away. He works in a David Corporation. And when I leave for work, which is around now, he would be home. A vast majority, and see, as we still haven't gotten through with Penal David Corporation to find out about spraying. You cannot be outside after 6. The mosquitoes will lift you up and take you to Tobago.
You know, just say that
There are so many mosquitoes.
I haven't heard spraying in a very long time.
And we trying to call. Every day we call neighbors. We have a group chat where every neighbor try to make a call. You get in the first call, they answer it, and when they transfer it to the department, well, that phone must be on Mars because they reach it yet. So while I understand they have very hard-working public servants, it's not so when you try to just get a basic someone to answer the phone or to get a deed or to do this or to pay stamp duty or just a basic thing. What if you go by regular business, you will get it done. It's impossible. The last vehicle I sold, we had to make 4 attempts to transfer the car until we actually got success.
Best time to transfer cars after lunch.
Yeah, but you go in, and when you go, the line is so long, or this, or the paper have a crease on it, and you have to go and get back one, and then the next one, the receipt for the change of color wasn't seeing it, and you have to go back and pay back for the change of color, and all kind of stupidness just to change that.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah, it and this is just regular people.
All right, thank you, buddy.
All right, let's say good morning to our next guest. Good morning, Father Georges. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, Richard. How are you today?
And
first
good. I'm good.
And thank you for joining us and moving up the interview. But of course, Father Georges, to give you some context, is a Catholic priest based in TNT who holds a doctorate in philosophy from the University of Navarre, Spain. While involved in teaching at the university, his main work over 20 years is to guide persons of different ages and backgrounds in the development of their spiritual lives, integrating the dimensions of their lives into life projects as a carefully concerned citizen. Dr. Georges, you have written a book on character building.
That's correct. Yes, I have.
What's the name of the book?
So the book is entitled, it's a fancy name, that's some big words. It's called The Introduction to Anthropology of Integration. Fancy words. What that means? Anthropology of integration. Yes, some fancy words. But what it is, it's a book about a new approach to character building. But those fancy words are just there to say that the approach to character building is not what we are accustomed to, where we are told, okay, be good, be orderly, be fair, but rather where a person, through stories and narrative and questioning, are brought to understand and discover them on their own. So that's where we say that it's an integration, because the approach is where you are in touch with the different levels of your being. And anthropology, well, because we try to put at the center the dignity of the human person.
Is it aimed at children, adults, everyone?
Well, the title says it says Handbook for Teachers, Parents, and Educators, which more or less means everybody, I guess. So that it's really for because it involves a lot of philosophy. I would say and the terms that are used, a person would need a certain level of education. So that I would say it's more for adults. Yeah.
What inspired? Why do you think it was needed this time?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The part of it was fruit of many years. I mean, I've been dealing with working with young people even before volunteering, even before I was a priest. So that's like more than 25 years. And young people today, I realize that they don't want to be told what to do. I guess nobody really likes that, but especially young people, they want to see things for themselves. And so that I found that we needs to be a new approach in terms of trying to help them to make good decisions. They want to figure it out. They want to see it. They want to write those, let's say, scripts by which they will live for themselves. And then also young people today, they are faced with many challenges. They live in a confused world. I'm sure we can all agree with that. When we look around, there's so many, that there are so many, if you want, cliques. They live in a world where there's a word that is often used. It's called identity politics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that word where they are told to try to identify with a certain group. So it is, we are black against white, or rich against poor, the north against the south, and the different races. And so that it's very confusing for a young person now trying to find their way in the midst of all that. How do you navigate all that is coming to you very powerfully in the media, impressioning you? It's so, at the same time, you want to make your own decisions, but you're also being peer pressured into kind of polarized groups. And then also, on top of all of that, that you find that the young people, that they today, that they have sort of very much, it's a very emotive society where that they're very much taught to sort of be in touch with how you feel, so that we have a gap in terms of what we can call the virtues or character education. It was the whole idea of the soul, time-tested, proven values. These have just been thrown out. It's like,
and what about people?
Is
it grounded in Catholicism? Because you say make good decisions, you speak about the soul. What about young people who don't have that leaning, don't have that sort of orientation, not of a spiritual upbringing? Does the book cater for them, or is it that you have to have some grounding in Catholicism or spirituality to
Yes,
benefit from the book?
very good question. I should perhaps clarify that from the beginning, that this book is not a religious work. I kind of joke telling people that if you take a look at the book, has no divine seal on it. You can look on it. It's not a religious work in any way, saying that this is the doctrine of the church. It has no imprimatur, which is a fancy word saying that approved reading, by church authorities. Nothing like that. It's just a series of ideas that is just put out there. It is fruit of many years of dealing with young people, and also fruit of discussions with experts, especially persons who have been involved in character education, and as well persons who work in character education. And that is all different people, it's not just persons who are involved in a religious sense. It has been in just teachers, educators, parents. That's their job they said bring their kids in to have a good character, regardless of what religion you belong to. I don't know if it's hard to convince people of that because I'm a priest, but that is the truth actually, that it is not a religious work.
Well, I suppose hence the title of the book. The title of the book doesn't indicate anything religious whatsoever.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I deliberately try to do that, to show that it is based on time-tested thought, Aristotle, going back to the Greeks and so on. And, yeah.
How do you get past? Because there is a presumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, of some universality of values. And my experience in these times is that may not necessarily be so, depending on your upbringing and your socialization. I'll give you an example. I have a huge class I'm teaching of undergraduates. So one of their assignments was write an assessment of somebody you admire through the lens of a psychological approach. And one of the students told me that somebody know the assignment that you admire. And one of the students told me, will I lose marks if I write that I admire a gangster?
A gangster?
Yeah, a gangster. And I didn't know how to answer the question from the student.
Wow.
Which means, yeah. So you see your response is wow. And that's why I asked the question, are we presuming there's a universality of values out there that everyone seeks to ascribe to or should ascribe to, given how diverse and how strange the society has gotten now?
Yes. Well, yes. Yeah, that I'm sure when you hear something like that, that would kind of, that would be like, how, wow. Well, I think the universality of values is something that we do need to reaffirm. So that what the book presents is a very simple idea, which is that if we look around at nature, we see that the creatures, animals, birds, they naturally know what they need to do. They know what food is good for them. They know how to birds build nests. But then when it comes to the human person, it seems like we don't. We make a lot of bad decisions.
Well, bad to you. You try to tell some
bad to me.
neural girls that they shouldn't try to be like Kim Kardashian. They tell you you're crazy because that's who they aspire to be.
Yes.
You might consider it bad, but that's their life choice.
Yes, that's true. But then at the same time, we see that there's a lot of conflict. We see that there is a lot of, that sort of different people are groups sort of conflicting against each other. There are wars. We see crime, in our country. So these are things. I mean, we cannot deny the social ills. They are right there every day. The murders, the rape, the kidnappings. I mean, crime is awful, awful things. So that we do want to address these social ills. So in some sense, we say that there's certain people are making or doing things that really they need to stop doing. Yeah. So then the question is that why is it that we as humans do things like that? And so what the book tries to say is that it actually is natural to us to do what is good. That sounds a little strange because the fact that there's so much crime, so many social ills, and broken families, broken homes. But it is true. But we just have to figure out we discover it in a human way. Animals through instinct, but we discover it in a
Can I
human way,
be,
and that's
can I
the
be
word
can I be no pun
integration.
intended, devil's advocate? If it's so natural for us to do the good thing and the right thing, why did Adam disobey God?
Yes, wow. So the thing is that but you see, we need to then know how to discover what is good. And
Isn't that a
that's
moral tale rather than real? Isn't that a moral tale? There wasn't
no,
really an
well,
Adam
okay.
and Eve.
But I understand just question in that Adam and Eve, but projected onto our modern society where there's lies and there's unfairness and there's greed and lust for power and all of that. Huh?
Isn't it a tale about innocence versus reality ultimately? That there is an innocence, there's a sort of a prelapsarian innocence of people in the pre-Eden era, according to that tale. And so you would have that kind of prelapsarian kind of innocence, but post Eden, after whatever happened with the apple, and in terms of the metaphor of the apple, it's when you became a little bit more realistic about the failings of the human being, and religion is aspirational to get us back to I don't want to say to innocence, but is about let's make the right choices. That's ultimately what religion is about. Let us lean into the better part of humanity. And it's aspirational to lead us down that road through the various God figures that various religions have. And I take your point that generally, on a base level, human beings are inclined to make the right choices, but we can be self-destructive sometimes.
Yes.
In terms of our decisions and the decisions we make.
Yes.
And that destruction comes from, I guess, manner of circumstances, all manner of things that feed into why we become self-destructive that I'm sure somebody like Paul would have analyzed and would be better
because we hang around Ragoobarsingh. Father Georges, where can we get the book? Where's the book available?
Yes, the book, well, I am going to paper base later today. So that will be the main point where someone can pick them up. Paper base, I'm not sure if you know where that is. That's on Alcazar Street. Then also a person said they can contact me. My email, or they can give me a phone call, give me a call. So 741.
Do you care to share your email on the air?
Yes, sure. I'll be happy to. Is there like a chat for me to write it in on this? I'm not familiar with this studio.
The recording will be rebroadcast.
Okay. Yes, sure. It is Mark T. Georges. So Mark, my first name, T like the telephone, Georges, my surname, all together in all letters. Mark T. Georges @gmail.com.
Oh, that's easy now.
What has been responsible to the book in closing so far?
So far, the response has been, actually, I think the response has been very good. One of the things that the book has achieved, which I'm not sure people even realize it, but for me it's huge, 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 is that it has been able to break barriers. For example, I hope Franca doesn't mind me saying this, but I'm on this show thanks to Franca. I see she would have made this, this contact. And you may know Franca is not especially a religious person. But yet Franca and I have been working together. She has done these interviews. She has sort of, been very much enthused with the ideas. And so that is just what we were saying before. Even though I'm a priest, but you can see how the ideas in this book are bringing us back to really important fundamental things that we can all relate to as human beings. And so therefore we are sort of crossing barriers of faith, religion, whether political leanings, and things like that. And that is, for me, it is really, really, really marvelous, just by the fact that I was able to, in my launch, have Franca to be the main person leading the interview, and a person who is she's a very good person. Obviously, we know her. I admire Franca a great deal, but not a religious person. And he's like, I don't have
certainly we'd like to have you back on to delve more deeply into the philosophy of humankind and life and more.
Yes, that is what the book is all about. Yeah. But we got a nice introduction here from your friend talking to us about Adam and Eve and the innocence and the sin. That's what the book is. It doesn't go to the Bible, but that is the theme. How do we, in a sense, is not completely lost, but we need to learn how to get back in touch with it.
But Richard was there, so he will know. Thank you, Father Georges.
It's certainly a pleasure.
The book is called The Anthropology.
Book is called The Anthropology of Integration. It's a handbook for parent, teachers, and educators, available at paper base, or you can email me at marktgeorges@gmail.com.
Thank you, Father Georges.
It was a pleasure.
Same here. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot, Father Georges.
Have a great day, everyone. Please be safe out there and lean into your good side, your noble side.
That's a challenge.
Empathy.
Lead into your noble side.
Lead into the good side. So
the world needs more empathy. That's what happened.
We need to all keep that in mind. Yeah.
Have a great day.
Okay.
Have a great day, everybody. Be safe.
When you said I was wrong in Eden, I was going to make you sign up the cross on your pole, but the priest was present, so they knew that was inappropriate. Have a fantastic day, people. Whatever you do, remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health. Have a great one.
All right, guys. Of course, Wendell will join us tomorrow. But let's get into a news brief if he is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
News update. I'm Avril Sentel-Bab. Good morning. President and CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, Dax Driver, says that the TNT government needs to engage with the authorities in the U.S. to see where we stand with the gas deal with Venezuela. Speaking on the Paul Breakfast Show this morning, he said that it's too early to tell how new president of the U.S., Donald Trump, will affect TNT and its reliance on the gas deal with Venezuela. He stated, as of now, it's a wait-and-see issue. He disclosed that the present price of natural gas varies depending on geographical location. He said it's lower in the U.S., but higher in Europe and Japan. He said the diversifying pricing of natural gas is beneficial to TNT since most of all gas goes to Asia and other territories. 2 more police officers have had their bribery charges dismissed in court. Less than a week after 5 police officers were freed of extortion charges due to insufficient evidence, 2 of their colleagues involved in the same matter have now also been released. Criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran cites structure and process as 2 of the factors which can impact the effectiveness of the new Police Service Commission. He claimed he did not expect the current iteration of the new commission to make a difference in any way. And the number of confirmed laboratory deaths from dengue stands at 19 locally, while there are 2,004 laboratory confirmed cases of dengue fever. This information was contained in the Ministry of Health's latest update on dengue cases within the country. That was the update to 8 o'clock. Look out for news in full at 12 noon. I'm Avril Sentel-Bab. Good morning.
Legislation sets the tone for how we treat each other as a society. It provides those boundaries and the expectations, and it also upholds the rights of all of the citizens.
Legislation is important for everyone in society as it sets rules and regulations that create an organized, safe, and fair environment in which everyone is equal.
They form the opinion that because you have a disability, that you are somehow unintelligent, stupid, ridiculously asinine, you name it. So legislation is quite important, and I hope that legislation is soon coming so that people with disabilities can be who they are. People first, disabilities after.